With the technological advancements, especially with AI, there are many tools that you can use in order to plan a training program or organize how you want to go about your goals. But when it comes to program design, it's really important to find one that works for you and is suited for your goals, your fitness level, and your training frequency or schedule. So today I'm going to take you through how I design my athlete and client training programs so you can apply some of those things to yourself, or you can always take the guesswork by joining one of my hybrid training programs. Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm the personal trainer and running coach at Kathletics. Here at Kathletics, we're all about meeting you where you are in your fitness so you can approach hybrid training in a sustainable way. I've had 9+ years in the fitness industry, and so everything that I'm going to be sharing with you today has been developed over that time. So, how I program people today is not how I programmed training plans when I first started 9 years ago. A lot of mistakes were made, a lot of trial and error happened. I always joke that I'm sorry to the clients that I first started working with because they were my guinea pigs, and unfortunately somebody had to do it. And so how I trained then, there are elements, of course it wasn't like I just threw out random exercises, but now I have more insight on how to design a thoughtful and purposeful training program that is structured for you. So the first thing you need to consider when you are designing your training program is, what are your goals? Do you have a running goal? Do you have a lifting goal? Do you have both? Do you have a hiking goal? Is there like a specific date that you're wanting to have your performance goals all squared away and ready for? Or are you just trying to sustainably lift and run or lift and do some other type of cardio so you can live a long, healthful life? These are just a few examples of general goals, but there are a plethora of things you can apply these training principles to. So once you've figured out what your goal is, from there you want to decide, okay, based on that timeline, do I have enough training frequency in order to achieve that goal? So, for example, if you said you wanted to train for a marathon, but you told me that you only have 2 days per week to train, I probably would say that's not a very attainable goal. You're not going to feel great. There's a difference between being able to do something and should you do something. One thing that I'm really big on in my training programs is that we're meeting you where you are in your fitness, and we're actually setting you up for success to not only perform well, but also feel good while doing it. So when you're developing your goal, you really want to think about, what is your training frequency? Are you going to be training 2 times per week, three, four, five, six, whatever the case may be? All of these things are something to consider when you are planning out your goals. And there isn't one right way to do it. All of these options are completely reasonable. From your goals, you also want to consider your fitness level. Are you brand new to fitness, or have you been doing it for a few years? Have you been doing it for decades? Have you previously been an athlete, but then you took a couple years off for various reasons? This is going to impact where you start your fitness and where you start your frequency and how you are setting yourself up for your goals. So these three things, both your goals, your training schedule, and your fitness level, are all going to play a part into your training program. From here, this is where you design your program. And I'm going to share how I typically design my programs, but again, there's going to be variations depending on the athlete, depending on the client, and what their goals are, etc. So everything that I'm going to be going through today, it may be applicable to you, but it also may need a variation in order to be successful for you and sustainable. So within your program design, we always want to have a warm up. In my warm ups, I always include some sort of spine mobility, rotation, hip mobility, ankle mobility, and then some sort of plyometric within that. If you are newer to fitness, or if you're getting back into fitness, you might want to consider doing a little bit of core work or stability work for your core before you get into the main lift. For most of your warm up, you'll consider doing 1 to 2 sets, and depending on that exercise, it could be 5 reps all the way up to 10 to 15 or 20. So, the one thing about the warm up is that we don't ever skip the warm up. So, you need to have your warm up. That is an essential part of your entire workout. If you are short on time, find a different area to skip on. We need to make sure that we're getting the body prepared for the workout. From there, we're going to get into the main lift. So, you always want to start off with the biggest movement. So this is going to be your compound movements, thinking about squats, deadlifts, bench press, rows, These are the exercises that are going to require the most from your body in the sense of multi-joint exercises, as well as you're likely going to be lifting the heaviest weight with these exercises. So it's going to fatigue your CNS or your central nervous system the most. For your compound exercises, you'll want to choose 1 to 2 compound exercises depending on your frequency and your goals. And for this, you're probably going to do between 2 to 5 sets, likely more 3 to 5 sets. But again, this will depend on your goals and how much time that you have in order to train. This exercise is typically going to be in a lower rep range. Again, it'll depend on your goals. Like if you have really big strength goals, you might be doing 1 to 5 reps. Whereas if you have strength goals, but that's not like the big main focus, you might be doing between 3 to 8 reps for these exercises. From there, you're going to get into your accessory exercises. Now, these are the exercises that are going to support the main lift of that day. On the other hand, your accessory lifts may not directly impact the compound movement. For example, if you're doing a full body split and you're doing squats for your main movement and then your accessory lifts, sure, you're going to have like some single leg, hamstring, or glute focused exercise to support that, but you will want to have some sort of row or vertical pull, and then you'll also want to have some sort of overhead press or horizontal press throughout your weekly training. So it may not directly impact the compound movement, but we do need to have all of those movements within your entire week of training. So for the accessory lifts, you will want to consider having between 6 to 12 reps for those exercises. From the accessories, we're going to move on to isolation exercises. So isolation exercises are going to be the ones that are just focusing on primarily one muscle group. So thinking about like bicep curls or calf raises, where we're only working one specific muscle group. For these exercises, you could consider doing 8 to 15 reps, depending on your goals. From there, you're going to get into your cool down. Now, honestly, the cool down is the least important part of your entire workout. So if you need to skip something, this would be an area to skip. Am I encouraging that? No. So if you are doing a cool down, I recommend doing stretches that reflect the muscles that were used during your workout. So if you did hip thrust today, for example, I would want you to do some sort of hip or glute stretch in your cool down. Typically, I recommend holding each stretch for 20 to 30 seconds. You could go beyond that as well, as long as it feels good. This is typically what a day of training looks like, but this is just one day. Now, if you are somebody who is lifting 4 days or less, I typically recommend doing a full body split for those days. So across your entire week, you're going to be doing a squat, hinge, push, pull. So within that push and pull, we're going to be doing both vertical and horizontal pulls. We're going to be doing some single leg work, both quad focused and hamstring and glute focused. I also recommend having some sort of calf raise in there, and then doing some sort of triceps, biceps, something that is going to be a little bit more focused or a little bit more isolated for your upper body. And then, of course, sprinkling in core as well as carries through your week. So again, these are recommendations for somebody who's lifting, say, 2 to 4 times per week. You could apply this to 1 time a week. You could also apply this to 5 or 6 times per week. If you are training more than 4 days per week, I would consider separating out into an upper and lower split, or doing more of the bro split where you are doing back and bi, chest and tri, quad focus day, glute and hamstring focus day. That to me is a little bit more focused, especially if you have hypertrophy goals or bodybuilding goals. That's going to be more of that 5 to 6 or so lifting range. But for those who are doing 4 or less, who have hybrid training goals, or they are trying to just lift in a sustainable way, have it as part of their life to have general wellness and fitness, then I would keep that as full body workouts. Another thing to consider is that you want to spread out your training throughout the week. Of course, if you just need to get it done and you have to do back to back days and then you don't train for 5 days, sometimes that's just how it works. But if you have the opportunity to, I would aim for every other day or something similar to that in order to, one, have some recovery in between, but two, also leave time for your cardiovascular training, because your cardiovascular training is just as important as your strength training. You reap different benefits from both, but we want both of those benefits. These recommendations can be applied all year round. One thing that I do recommend when you are applying training to an entire year is that you have different blocks of focus. So whether you're doing hybrid training or if you're a runner or a hiker or not, we want to have different blocks. You'll start off with an endurance block. If you have muscle building goals, you will have a hypertrophy block. Honestly, I typically recommend that there is some sort of hypertrophy training within your yearly program. But if that is not a goal, you can skip from endurance to strength and then from strength to power and then repeat that. So having that cycle year round can really help continue to progress, continue to build, and make sure that you're staying fit all year round. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, be sure to like, subscribe, and then we'll see you in the next one.